Where are you right now? It's our daughter's wedding today. How can you not be here? You're her mother. One day, out of the blue, I got a call from my ex-husband, who I hadn't heard from since our divorce. However, what he said was completely baffling. The story goes back 13 years. One day, my husband suddenly asked for a divorce. Apparently, he'd been cheating on me for a few years, and recently found out his mistress was pregnant. My husband had started to care more for his mistress than for me, and decided he wanted to divorce me to marry her. After years of betrayal, I was completely done with him and agreed to the divorce, taking custody of our daughter. 13 years after the divorce. Suddenly, I got this strange call from him saying, "It's our daughter's wedding today." His nonsensical words left me completely confused, my mind going blank. I was already shocked to get a call from him after 13 years, but what was this about our daughter's wedding? Our daughter got married 3 years ago and already has 2 kids. When I told him that, he was completely thrown off. What? No, that can't be right. What I heard from my confused ex-husband left me speechless. My name is Sarah. I'm just an ordinary office worker, living with my husband John and our daughter Hannah. My husband worked for a company that did business with mine. We hit it off at a networking event for employees around the same age. Eventually, we started dating and got married. A little while after we got married, we were blessed with a child, and about a year later, I gave birth to Hannah. Though I was often running around after our daughter, I was living a happy life. Life with my husband and daughter was going well, but there was something that troubled me. It was my relationship with my MIL. For some reason, my MIL just couldn't stand me. Even before the wedding, at our first meeting, my MIL wasn't thrilled about John marrying me. "Well, if John has chosen you, we won't say anything." John had to calm her down, and that's how we managed to get through that moment. John thought her attitude would soften once we were married, but it didn't. Every time I saw her, she'd make snide remarks or do things to annoy me. "Your in-laws are here, and this is the meal you serve? Are we not welcome here? Wait, but you were the one who said I didn't need to go out of my way to make anything special." Even if I said that, it's common sense to at least order sushi or something, don't you think? Once, when I took her words for it, she looked at me with an expression that screamed, "This is why you're hopeless." Hey, Sarah. I heard you're making John help with the chores. How could you ask him to do housework after he's tired from work? Well, John and I talked it through and agreed on this. Besides, I work too, so we're on the same boat. Your work isn't nearly as tough as John's, is it? A wife should support her husband no matter what. Don't you get that? Sometimes, she'd interfere with the decisions John and I had made together as a couple. Whenever I asked John to do something about his mom's attitude, he'd just laugh awkwardly. We only see her once in a while, so just let it slide. No matter how much I pressed him, John wouldn't budge, so I eventually gave up and started keeping my distance from his family. I lived that way for several years. When our daughter was 12 and about to graduate elementary school, something happened. "I'm sorry, but I want a divorce." I was confused when John suddenly asked for a divorce. But when I heard the details, my mind went blank with anger and sadness. Apparently, John had been cheating on me for years. And recently, his mistress became pregnant. My husband, who had started to care more for his mistress than for me, saw this as the perfect opportunity to divorce me and marry her. By the way, my MIL approved of the affair, and apparently, she was the one who introduced them in the first place. My MIL had been planning to separate me from my husband and bring in his mistress as the new wife she preferred. Her plan worked perfectly. After years of being secretly betrayed by my husband, I had completely lost all respect for him. Our daughter was almost in middle school and becoming more independent, so I accepted his request for a divorce. And just like that, our divorce went smoothly. Naturally, I took custody of our daughter. Since the divorce was caused by his affair, I was able to demand alimony and child support until our daughter graduated high school. He didn't object and paid both the alimony and child support in one lump sum into my account, then completely disappeared. His attitude seemed to say, "We're strangers now, and I have no interest in either of you anymore." While I wasn't shocked by his actions since I'd already lost all respect for him, I still felt sad that our years together and our daughter's existence seemed meaningless to him. Even though my ex-husband was such a jerk, he was still Hannah's father by blood. Even if the divorce broke our relationship, blood ties don't disappear, and I didn't want him to pretend Hannah didn't exist just because he lost interest. With that in mind, I continued to send him letters about Hannah's life, like her birthdays, school admissions, and graduations. At the very least, I wanted him to know that his own child was doing well. Despite sending those letters, I never got a reply or any reaction from my ex-husband, so I had no idea if my feelings were getting through. Time went by, and that situation remained unchanged. A few years after my divorce from my ex-husband, I remarried another man. Fortunately, my daughter accepted him, and they built a great relationship. Life with my new husband and daughter was peaceful and happy. Eventually, my daughter graduated from college and found a job. Shortly after starting her job, she married the man she'd been dating since college. My husband and I were overjoyed at her happy news. After that, my daughter and her husband had a wedding and officially got married. They rented an apartment near our house and started their new life, and about a year later, she gave birth to their first child. I began helping my daughter with her new role as a mother, while doting on my grandchild. 2 years later, she became pregnant with and gave birth to her second child. My husband and I felt delighted watching her busy yet joyful family life. As time passed, I realized it had been 13 years since my divorce from my ex-husband. Then, one day, a phone call disrupted our peaceful life. I happened to glance at my phone in my bag and noticed a missed call from an unfamiliar number. I was about to ignore it out of fear of calling back when the same number called again. Startled, I instinctively answered. "Hey, why didn't you pick up the first time?" He yelled right off the bat, and I jumped in fear. At the same time, the voice sounded familiar, so I nervously asked the person on the other end. "John. Is that you?"
Yeah.
"It's me." "What, have you forgotten my voice?" It was indeed my ex-husband's voice, which I hadn't heard in 13 years. The fact that he suddenly called after all these years made me feel more suspicious than surprised. Then, he shouted, "This isn't the time for chit-chat," and said something unbelievable. "Where are you right now?" "It's our daughter's wedding today." "How can you, her mother, not be here?" "What?" His sudden, incomprehensible words left my mind blank. I was already shocked to get a call from him out of the blue after 13 years, but what was this about our daughter's wedding? I hadn't sent him wedding photos because Hannah didn't want me to, but I had told him she got married in a letter, so he should know. Completely confused, I opened my mouth, not even sure what I was saying. "I'm not sure what you're talking about, but Hannah got married 3 years ago and has 2 kids now." Then, for some reason, my ex-husband got angry and started yelling at me. "Don't lie. Skipping our daughter's wedding, are you even her mother?" He wouldn't listen to my words and kept shouting at me. I couldn't understand what he was saying, and he wouldn't even let me explain. Completely baffled by this unreasonable conversation, I fell silent. My daughter gently asked, "Mom, what's wrong? Are you okay?" My daughter had just given birth to her second child a few days ago. I was at her house to help her adjust to life with the new baby. Looking at her concerned face, I covered the phone's mic and whispered to her. "It's your biological father, he's saying he's hosting your wedding and wants me to come." When I answered honestly, still confused, my daughter frowned. "Huh? What is he talking about? I already had my wedding." I told him that too, but he's not listening. Even as my daughter and I talked, I could hear my ex-husband ranting on the other end of the phone. "Hey, are you listening? Just get over here already." I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. Then, my daughter grabbed the phone from my hand and started talking to my ex-husband. "Hello, this is Hannah. Is this really my dad? My daughter, not bothering to hide her irritation, spoke, and my ex-husband fell silent for a moment. What, Hannah? Is it really you? Compared to when he was talking to me, my ex-husband sounded deflated. My daughter didn't hold back and threw her words right at him. I don't know you, and I don't care either. Can you please stop lying about me having a wedding today? I've been married for a while, had my ceremony, and I have kids. My daughter's blunt response finally made my ex-husband realize that what I had said was true. Then he seemed to panic and started yelling again on the other end of the phone. Hey! Sarah, what's going on? Are you telling me Hannah has already had her wedding? As he freaked out, I found myself becoming calmer. Deciding I couldn't deal with him any longer, I hung up and turned off my phone. Hannah, I'm sorry. And thank you. As I sighed with relief and thanked my daughter, she smiled and said, "It was nothing." When I turned my phone back on a little later, I saw a long list of missed calls. Of course, all the calls were from my ex-husband. I didn't want anything more to do with him, so I blocked his number, deleted the call history, and decided to act like he had never contacted me. A few weeks after that happened. Just like with the call from my ex-husband, I suddenly got a call from my ex-in-laws. I hadn't been in touch with them since the divorce, so I wondered what they wanted after all this time. When I answered, my ex-in-law's panicked voice came through. Hello, Sarah? Please come to our house right now. I was completely confused and my mind went blank at her sudden request. Then I heard what sounded like my ex-husband shouting from the background, "Sarah, help me. You're the only one I can ask." I had no idea what was going on, but honestly, I didn't want to get involved with them anymore. I tried to ignore their calls, but no matter how many times I refused, they kept insisting, "Just come, please." Exhausted from dealing with them, I reluctantly agreed to meet them. When I stepped into my ex-in-law's house for the first time in 13 years, I found my ex-husband and his parents looking completely worn out. What they told me left me speechless. After our divorce, my ex-husband had remarried the woman he had been having an affair with, and they had a daughter together. At first, their remarriage seemed happy, but over time, her behavior started to change. After a while, she stopped working, refused to do housework, and became lazy. She didn't respect my ex-husband or my ex-in-laws, and over time, their frustration started to build up. Apparently, before the remarriage, she had been pretending to be a proper and graceful woman. But because they had welcomed her as the mistress, they couldn't treat her poorly, so they continued their marriage despite everything. More than 20 years passed, and the daughter they had together was getting married. However, just before the wedding, the mistress disappeared. They couldn't reach her by phone, and her family home was empty when they visited. The mistress had completely vanished. Not having the bride's mother at the wedding would look bad. In her panic, John's mother made a ridiculous suggestion. "I've got it. Why not have her act as the mother? You know, the woman you were married to the first time." My ex-husband agreed with his mother's idea, and that's why I got that strange phone call the other day. Apparently, he had been throwing away all the letters I had sent him without reading them. That's why he didn't know that my daughter had already gotten married. After I hung up on him, my ex-husband resigned himself to having the wedding without a mother of the bride. But just before the wedding, a shocking truth came to light. Before the wedding, the mistress's daughter, the bride, had a medical check, and it turned out her blood type was one that neither my ex-husband nor the mistress could have passed on. In other words, the mistress had been raising a child with another man, pretending that it was my ex-husband's daughter. My ex-in-laws were furious when they found out. What? This child isn't even John's blood. We've been raising a stranger's kid all this time. What do we do? If she's not John's child, then she's not part of our bloodline. My ex-in-laws, who had been eagerly waiting for her to have a son to continue the family line, were now devastated. That's when they remembered me again. Oh, that's right. John has a daughter from his first marriage. Didn't she have kids? Let's take one of them to continue the family line. That's a great idea. That outrageous suggestion from my ex-MIL was why I was called to my ex-in-law's house. So, hand over one of your grandkids. My ex-MIL said this with a desperate tone. Her face showed no hint of regret or apology. It seemed she fully expected me to agree to her outrageous demand. My ex-FIL and ex-husband were also staring at me, just like her. I was shocked not only by what she said but by their collective attitude. The nerve of trying to take someone's grandchild for their own selfish reasons was just unbelievable. Furious, I firmly told them. No, I refuse. I'm not giving my precious grandchild to people like you. They were stunned, probably not expecting me to refuse. What? You've got 2 grandkids, right? You can give us one. Exactly. We're in such a desperate situation. How can you be so heartless? Regaining their composure, my ex-husband and his family started yelling again. Realizing it was a waste of time to engage with them, I glared at them and spat out. Trying to take away the child my daughter loves is far worse, don't you think? With that, I turned my back on them, who were still shouting, and left. After getting home, I shared everything with my current husband and daughter just to be safe. Upon hearing my story, my husband and daughter were even more outraged than I was. What the heck? Treating someone's grandchild like an object is way out of line. There's no way I'd let those people take my precious children. In reality, my ex-husband and his family don't know where my daughter's family lives, so the chances of them acting on this are low. Still, I didn't want to take any chances, so we agreed to contact each other immediately if my ex-husband tried anything. A few days later. Our assumption that my ex-husband and his family wouldn't do anything turned out to be wrong. Somehow, they had tracked down my daughter's family and showed up at their home. My ex-husband and his family tried to forcibly take my daughter's child away. While my daughter struggled against them, her husband rushed in. What are you doing? He shielded my daughter and their child, standing in front of them. Get out of the way. We need that kid, just hand them over. My ex-husband, with wild eyes, reached out toward my daughter's child as he shouted. That's when my current husband and I arrived at the scene. John, stop. Sarah. Why are you here? It turned out my daughter had immediately called me from her phone in her pocket as soon as they showed up. Realizing that my daughter's family was in danger, I called the police and rushed over with my husband. Relieved that we made it in time, we stood by my daughter and her husband, ready to confront my ex-husband. Trying to take a child by force when they're resisting? That's basically kidnapping. Stop being ridiculous. Unable to argue with me, my ex-husband and his family twisted their faces and fell silent. Not long after, the police arrived at the scene. My ex-husband and his family panicked when they saw the police and protested, saying, "We didn't do anything." But they were still taken away, and we finally sighed in relief. Later, I heard through the grapevine that at the police station, they insisted they weren't at fault and that we had overreacted, causing a scene. However, based on the testimony from me and my daughter's family, their actions were deemed illegal, and they ended up behind bars for a while. The incident with the police also spread throughout their neighborhood. Even if they get out of jail in a few years, their future looks bleak, and they'll likely live in isolation. Meanwhile, the daughter of my ex-husband's mistress has cut ties with him and his family. It's only natural since they started treating her poorly once they found out she wasn't biologically related. Her mother, the mistress, had disappeared right before her wedding, planning to leave my ex-husband to live with her lover. But her lover quickly dumped her. After being abandoned, she tried to rely on her daughter, but the daughter firmly refused. Though she wasn't blessed with good parents or family, she seems to be living a reasonably happy life with her spouse now. The chaos my ex-husband and his family caused was terrible, but it strengthened the bond between us and our daughter's family. Now, I live happily, surrounded by my dependable husband, my strong daughter and her family, and my adorable grandkids.